All right, guys, it always all starts with the image search. So I'm searching for an interesting portrait because I like colorizing portraits. And I know National Geographic has some beautiful portraiture, so I'm going to choose that. So that's my search terms. But I don't want to just take anything from this page because I need an image that's going to be high resolution. A lot of images that you find on the internet are going to be tiny little terrible images that are all pixelated, and when you try to zoom in, you can't see anything. So don't just leave it at that. We're going to now go to where it says Tools, change the size to large, and that's going to eliminate a bunch of things from your results. It's going to eliminate all those crappy little pixelated images that you don't want to use. So now I can pull anything from here. If I wanted to really go crazy, I could choose this Dia de los Muertos image, but that's a lot of colors. Unless I'm feeling particularly ambitious, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to choose another image. This has a good range of colors. It's not so crazy. This is a good image for me to use because it says 1500 by 1000. That's a nice large image. Anything less than 1000 pixels wide is not very good. You don't want to use that. So I'm going to right click on this, tell it to open the image in a new tab. And close this. There she is. Here's my web address. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to Photopea. I'm going to tell it to open from a URL. Paste. And there's my image. I'm ready to start working. While I'm working here, I'm going to turn off my transform controls because I'm not going to do any compositing, so I'm not going to need to resize, and I don't like having those show up on the outside of my image. Okay, so our first step is to actually change this to black and white. This should be quick review. We're going to choose, black and white. I can mess with these controls if I so desire. At this point, I don't really want to, so I'm going to close those. That looks pretty good. I might add a curves layer just to try and have a little more to work with. Pull my blacks out a little bit more. That's a little bit crazy there. There we go. That's pretty good. All right. So I've got my black and white image to work with. And when I want to look back at what colors I'm supposed to be pulling, I can hide these layers so I can turn them back on. There we go. And I'm going to start adding layers. I'll just go ahead and add a bunch of layers. And so each layer that I'm working on, I need to make sure that I select the layer that I want to work on from bottom to top. So the topmost layer is going to be the topmost layer in what shows on the top of things. So if I start at the bottom, maybe I could start with this background. And if I want to take a look at what the background is, I can turn off the black and white layer and take a look. And it's kind of this kind of cool gray color. I can sample it by clicking on my foreground color here and then clicking on that background. So it's kind of a cool gray. Then I click OK. Now I have that color selected, so I'm going to hide these layers again. Make sure I'm looking on layer 1. I'm going to double click on this and call it background color. And then I'm going to go to my brush tool and I'm going to start painting. Now, the thing I don't like about Photopea is it can get hard to see the brush when I'm over certain things. So right now, when I'm over the light parts of her face, I can see it easily. When I start to get over the gray stuff, it gets really hard to see. So you have to be careful about that. I'm going to change the size of the brush, and there's a keyboard shortcut for that. And my screen should be showing you, but it's not. It's the right bracket. So that you have the square brackets and the curly brackets that's on a key next to the letter P. The left bracket makes your brush smaller, and the right bracket makes your brush bigger. Since I'm painting the background right now, I actually want a fairly large brush. I can right click and get, come on, I should be able to get, there we go, there it is. I can right click and get the brush palette. So here's the brush palette, and I'm going to choose a soft brush right now. That's quite large. I'm going to make it a little bit harder. The softer the brush edge, the more blurred that brush's edge is going to be. So I'm just going to paint, and this is solid color. If I turn the image off in the background, I can see I'm just painting solid colors. So I'm going to paint this about as accurately as I can. There we go. So I did mess up. I got on her hand a couple times, her arm, her little fabric covering I got on there a couple times. I'm going to fix that by adding a layer mask. The layer masks are right here. The layer mask, when I look at the layer, has now two things on a single layer. It has the actual colors that I painted, and then it has a mask. And the mask only does black and white. Wherever it's white, it's opaque. I can see whatever's on that layer. So you can see, I can see all of my background. Wherever it's black, and that's what I'm going to add right now. So I'm going to change this to black. Wherever it's black, it actually becomes see-through. It's like I'm cutting it, right? So you can see I drew in black on the adjustment or the layer mask right there, and now that's see-through. So if I continue to kind of paint around that area is going to become see-through, almost like I'm erasing it. I'm not erasing it, but it's like I'm erasing it. So I'm going to keep doing a little bit of that, clean up these edges here. She's going to end up with a little bit of a glow around her head, but that's okay. All right. I could work with a smaller brush, but I don't really want to. So you can see the black that I drew on the layer mask. If I switch to white, which I can do by pressing X, if I switch to white and I paint on there, it's actually going to show that section again. So black is hide, white is show. Switch to black, there's hide. Switch to white, there's show. So I'm showing and hiding different parts of this layer, only when I'm painting on the layer mask. If I switch to the actual layer and I try to paint in white on the layer, whoops, I'm painting in white on that layer. That's bad. I don't want to do that. So you have to be careful that you're not painting on the layer, you're painting on the layer mask when you're doing the black-white to show or hide. All right. So I've got that color. It's just a solid color right now. If I hide these again, you see my solid color. In order to have that color show the texture and the highlights and the shadows through it, I need to choose a blend mode. Here's the blend modes. Right now it's normal, which means it's not transparent, it's not showing anything through it. And if I start to go down, it should start to show what these blend modes look like. Oh, sorry, I had the wrong layer selected. Whoops. It's changing blend mode on my background, which is why you couldn't see anything happening. There we go. All right, now we try darken. It doesn't look too bad, but I'm going to try a few others to see if I like it. That's bad. That's really bad. Nope, nope, nope. That's closer. I can try lighten. That's not going to work. Screen's not going to work. Color dodge. That's closer to what I want. Nope. Try overlay. Overlay is actually not too bad. Soft light. That's closer. Hard light. No. So I think I'm going to do soft light for that. And I might adjust the opacity of this to see how that works. Opacity is going to start bringing the black and white back through, so you got to be careful about that. And then I can also take this layer and adjust the hue saturation, and it's going to allow me to lighten it, play with the saturation a little bit so I can add more color there. And I can play with the hue, which is going to turn it more either red, purple, or blue. So I can play with the colors once I've already painted them. All right, so I like that color in the background. Now it's time for me to start painting on her face. Or maybe I'll go ahead and do the face. So we'll try the skin tones. So we're going to call this skin. Whoops. There we go. I'm going to choose my skin color. Again, for that, I'm just going to sample from her body. So foreground color and skin tone. We'll pick a middle tone there. That's good. I'm going to go back to the skin. I'm going to turn on the black and white. And I'm going to adjust my brush. Look at how big that brush is. That's way too big. So I'm going to make it smaller again here. Now I can be a little more accurate. And again, I like soft brushes so I don't have hard edges. And I'm going to paint as accurately as I can up to the edges and try not to cover things I don't want to cover. Okay, so now we need to add our layer mask to try and touch this up a little bit. I'm not going to touch up a lot, but I am going to make the adjustments in here, kind of clean up some of the points where it needs to be a little bit narrower. And not too bad. All right. So there's my skin tone. I'm going to take that again and do a layer blending mode. I'm going to start with overlay because I think that's going to be the closest. Try soft light. That's a little bit too subtle, so I think I like overlay. So you can see that that color, that layer color, is what's blending with what's beneath it. If I turn off all the layers beneath it, you see all I did was paint this solid color. When I use that layer blending mode and blend it with what's beneath it, it's going to create a mixture between that color and all the values beneath it, the darks and the lights. So that's all you're doing. You're continuing on through there. All right, so I'm going to add the eye color. So her eyes were, her eyes were part of what was interesting about the photograph. She had one blue eye, one tan. Zoom in here. Take a look at the original color. Make sure my paintbrush is the right size. That's pretty good. Layer blending mode. Pretty good. Compare that to the original. Say not too bad. We'll continue on until you're finished with all of your layers and continue painting and keep changing. I would do one color per layer so you have control over it, and name your layers so you know what you're doing. So if this is going to be the fabric, I can call this fabric. Once you have completed your paintings, your document should look something like this, multiple layers, each kind of controlling some aspect of your colorization. Then you're going to save the file as a PSD. So you're going to go to File, Save as PSD. And what that should do is it should start downloading it right here. As soon as it's done downloading, it's going to show up in your downloads folder. If you've saved it as a PSD multiple times because you're spending time working on it, you saved it one day and then you had to open it back up another day, it's going to have multiple versions, and each new version is going to have a 1 in parentheses. So The most recent version is going to have the most ones at the end of the name of the document. So I have two versions here. This is the one that I worked on before, and this is the one that I just saved today. You're going to upload the most recent version of your document to Google Classroom. So that's the PSD.